Hey everyone, it is Dave. Welcome into another evening of Culling My Collection. And in this episode, I'm going to be looking at my collection of Raymond Chandler books. And there's somewhere probably between 15 and 20 books that I'm going to cover tonight. It is just after midnight. It's about 5 after midnight on June the 8th. It is a Monday, so happy Monday, everybody. And we'll take a look at some really cool books and some really old books today. Some of these are books that are not really ones that I've read per se, in terms of the copy. I've read the stories, but I haven't read necessarily this particular copy. For instance, we're going to start off with probably the best known book, which is The Big Sleep. And I've read it in paperback, but I have not read it in this hardback. But this is the only copy I have available right now to me. The paperbacks are in a totally different section. So this is just an old hardback version of it. It is The Big Sleep, and of course that's the famous one with Humphrey Bogart and Lauren Bacall. To me, when you look at Philip Marlowe, it is Humphrey Bogart. And it is not Elliot Gould. It is not Robert Mitchum or anyone like that. It has to be Humphrey Bogart. So when I read these stories, that's who I always envision in terms of the language and the body and the cadence and everything like that. As far as this book is concerned here, this is a 1966 reprint of the original 1939 version. So again, The Big Sleep is fantastic. Hopefully when I get to my paperbacks, which are somewhere around here, we'll go through those together. I'm also, my coffee tonight, half and half decaf, is in my favorite coffee mug. Okay, so those of you who know me, I've worked in the nursery industry before, and back in 1988, I got this cup. Don's Nursery Company out of Anaheim, California, no longer around, but it was just a coffee cup I always wanted, and it just kind of made me part of the crew when they gave me one of these. I didn't work for Don's Nursery. I worked for another nursery called Bamico. And Bamico isn't in business either. It was bought out by a retail nursery chain. And I went to work for them for about 10 years. But right out of high school, I worked for Bamico Nursery in Pasadena. And it was some of the best months of my life. I only worked there 6 months. But the owner, he and I stayed friends all the way into, probably the early 2010s. He died at 91, and he was just this cool old Japanese guy. Actually was in one of the internment camps in Kansas, I think they sent him to. So he had some just incredible stories, multi-millionaire, and just really one of my wonderful heroes in life. So like H.P. Lovecraft and like Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, Raymond Chandler wrote a lot of short stories and a few novels. So The Big Sleep is one of them. The next one is The Lady in the Lake. And this one, I don't know. I did read this copy of it. And this is from the Covina bookstore. 1943 is this edition. So this is a pretty old edition, and that's why it has dust on it. Hopefully no one saw that. Next is Farewell, My Lovely, followed by The Little Sister, and then lastly, a very thin novel, but I believe also a film, The High Window. And these are all vintage crime paperbacks. And I'm not really going through these per se to tell you about the stories because, look, it's Philip Marlowe. They're all about the same. And it's just kind of like the Star Wars films. It's like you watch them because you need another Star Wars film. There's not necessarily a beginning and an end. It is what it is. And so that's to me what Raymond Chandler is. It's the big sleep followed by the long goodbye and so on. That is literally story after story. Now, when Raymond Chandler died, and I'm going to jump to the post novels and post Raymond Chandler, there are two that I want to show you that were written by Robert Parker. And one of them, and there's a story here too, I got these books in the early 90s, maybe even the late 80s, but I think the early 90s. And I got Perchance to Dream. And again, there we go. There's a little bit better angle of it. And you can see the characters, definitely Lauren Bacall. This one doesn't really look like Humphrey Bogart, but this is a sequel to The Big Sleep. And let me see if I can read a little bit in the jacket cover here. It was, by the way, 1995, Cavina Bookstore, first edition. We'll see if we have a copyright date here. 1991. So I was right, early 90s. A rattling good mystery, wrote the New York Times book review about Poodle Springs and the best-selling Raymond Chandler novel completed by Robert Parker. It is impossible to think of any other writer in the world better qualified than Robert Parker. At his very best, Parker sounds more like Chandler than Chandler himself. Now, Robert Parker, author of Spencer detective novels and foremost interpreter of the Chandler tradition, embarks once again into Chandler territory with an all-new sequel to the 1939 classic, The Big Sleep. Set in the sun-drenched streets on the lush hillsides of Los Angeles, Perchance to Dream takes Private Eye Philip Marlowe deeper than ever into labyrinths of crime, duplicity, and murder. After the death of General Sternwood, his daughter Vivian sends her psychotic sister Carmen to a sanatorium. Carmen's sudden disappearance from the hospital leads Vivian to turn into desperation to Eddie Mars, a shady underworld club owner concerned for what is happening to the family. The Sternwood's butler asks Marlowe to find Carmen and fend off Eddie Mars once again. Oh, so good. So, again, Perchance to Dream. I've read this. It's a great story. When I first started, it mentioned the book Poodle Springs. So, this is Poodle Springs, also by Robert Parker. And this is an unfinished story, I believe, from Raymond Chandler. And it was Robert Parker who finished it. So, when Raymond Chandler died in 1959, he left behind the first 4 chapters of a Philip Marlowe thriller. Now, 30 years later, Poodle Springs is published as a full-length work because of a most unusually inspired and wonderfully successful experiment of the man considered the foremost interpreter of the Chandler tradition, Robert B. Parker. So, we've got 4 chapters from Raymond Chandler, the rest of the book by Robert Parker. This copy is not my original copy. I also bought it from the Cavina Bookstore back in the 90s, and I lost it. I don't know where it is. I don't know where I put it. Maybe I brought it to work, and I left it at one of my jobs. Maybe someone took it. Maybe I left it in my car. I don't know what happened to it. And, I mean, I'm an older guy now. I've had a long life. There are very few things, though, that I have misplaced or that are gone that I'm like, I wonder whatever happened to this. I don't know what happened to my original book. Maybe I'll find out one day. I don't know, but it ain't here. And it really ticked me off, so I went and bought this just to fill up the space where I'm like, I had Poodle Springs. Oh, so upsetting. So upsetting. Let's take a look at some of the short story collections I have. There are a couple. The first one I'm going to look at, and these are very vintage, 1940s. pulp paper. Okay, so the great thing about pulp paper, and by the way, this is Red Wind. I'll give you a copyright date here in just a moment. This is a Tower Books edition, first edition, 1946. You can see how heavily that this is staining, right? The good news about that, it smells amazing. I mean, this is, and again, you can kind of see the yellowish, the acidity of the paper. And it smells great, but it's rotting paper, right? And it has a number of stories in it. So let me see if I can give you some titles here. Red Wind, Blackmailers Don't Shoot, I'll Be Waiting, Goldfish, and Guns at Cyrano's. And all of these came from generally different magazines like Black Mask or the Saturday Evening Post. What's great about this particular book is there was a time where I had a really weird job. I was a sales rep, and we started at 4 in the morning. So that meant I got up at 3 in the morning to go to work. So I'd work from 4 a.m. to about noon or 1 in the afternoon. I would go to bed at that time when I got home. I'd wake up a few hours later and I would go to Disneyland. And so I had one of those annual passes where I could go literally every day. And sometimes you get tired of going to Disneyland. So I would literally drive down to the hotel with my book and I would read at the Disneyland Hotel this particular book. So that was always such a great memory. And again, just a great, great smell from these older. Oh my God. This is how book lovers get high, is through the smell of these books. But just a wonderful book. And I love that old dust jacket. Another one, very similar in age, is Spanish Blood. And we'll take a look here. Again, old paper, 1946. Spanish Blood, The King in Yellow, Pearls Are a Nuisance, Nevada Gas, one of my favorite stories from Raymond Chandler, and then Trouble Is My Business. And again, you can kind of see the darkness, the staining of the pages, and especially around the edges here. Look at that. But there's really not anything you can do about that. As far as some larger collections, I do have this one, and this one was from my dad's collection. He gave this to me. Killer in the Rain. Killer in the Rain. And the inside jacket, $5.50. Just amazing. This is from the 1960s. Killer in the Rain, The Man Who Liked Dogs, The Curtain, Try That Girl, Mandarin's Jade, Bay City Blues, The Lady in the Lake, so you do have at least one novel, and No Crime in the Mountains. So, again, just a beautiful copy, and probably about 400 pages, I'm guessing. $3.93. Selected letters. I just picked this up the other day. And by the other day, it's like 6 months ago. So selected letters of Raymond Chandler. I have not read this yet. And this is from, as I mentioned previously, the Covina bookstore, which this time has switched hands and it's now Johnson Archives, something like that. And I'm just going to zip through the table of contents real quick. The recipients gives us a list of people he was writing to, including Ian Fleming. Ray Stark, of course, famous for Murder by Death. Alfred Hitchcock. A lot of names, but a lot of ones I'm just not familiar with. And there's a lot of these names are also high school friends, Chandler's lawyer in San Diego, a publisher in New York, things like that. So they're all dated. Here's one to Dale Warren. January 7th, 1945. Dear Warren, I finally unearthed your kind letter from a tangled mess of correspondence dating back to the Civil War. Oh, that's cool. That is really cool. I've also got one more collection back from the 40s. Look at that. The Long Goodbye. And this is, by the way, I shouldn't say it's a short story collection. This is actually a novel. It's one of the full-length novels. So I thought he did 5, but I guess he did 6. The one that is questionable, maybe as a short story, is The High Window. That's a very kind of thin novel. This one, let's see when this came out. This is 1953. But I do love, it's kind of like a tiki bar type of figure. All right, how many is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Let's do 3 more, and we'll call it good at 15. One of the newer ones that I got, very similar to Poodle Springs and Perchance to Dream, The Goodbye Coast. And it is by the author, and it's pronounced IDE. It's pronounced Ide. So it's Joe Ide. This one also is signed by the author. Present-day Los Angeles is still a city of scheming actors, ruthless gang members, and washed-up police. Still a city of traffic, inequity, and exquisite cheap food. I guess he hasn't been here recently. It is here that Joe Ide, the hottest of recently emerged crime writers, imagines a Philip Marlowe very much of our time, quiet, lonely, and remarkably capable. But he also lives beneath the shadow of his father, a once decorated LAPD homicide detective, famous throughout the city, who's given in to drink after the death of Marlowe's mother. So that is something I'm going to look forward to reading. A very popular author. I know he's written several books. We also have a biography. Now, this is also the guy who wrote the letters of Raymond Chandler. Obviously, he didn't write the letters. He compiled the letters of Raymond Chandler. And so Frank McShane is the person who's normally connected as the biographer of Raymond Chandler. And this one is cool because, and this one is also for my dad. So there was a time where he started giving away all his books, and he would cut out newspaper articles, things like that about Chandler. Now this one looks interesting. Hold on. And it mainly looks interesting because when's the last time you saw a Bullock's ad, right? So this is the lost city of Raymond Chandler. So early Hollywood. And you can go on Raymond Chandler tours of the city. And the name is escaping me now. There's a tour company. I'm sure you can Google it and find it. Oh, I just had it. I don't know where it is now. But they will take you on a tour throughout the main parts of the city of the locations of Raymond Chandler's stories. One of the interesting things, though, what I love is that he writes about, and I'm a Southern California native. He writes about Pasadena. He writes about more areas where I am, out in like Ontario, Pomona, where you take Euclid north all the way into the mountains and things like that. One last book, and we'll do this one here. This is also a fairly new book, at least for me. The Raymond Chandler, and the Raymond Chandler Papers, Selected Letters and Nonfiction from 1909, excuse me, to 1959. This one also from the Covina bookstore. And by the way, I don't know if I've ever shown you my book plate. This is a painting that I did many, many years ago. It's actually hanging over on the wall across the way from me. It's about 4 feet by 5 foot. And then I had a local book plate company, Book Plate Inc., made these for me. I think I did mention it in one of my videos already. But this is one of the books I put the book plate in. And so this one here came out in the year 2000, and they just break everything down by years. So nonfiction and letters. And that is now a pretty big pile of books. So I think that's where I'll stop for tonight. So we just covered one author, and we will go ahead. I think in the next video I'll do, I have Ellery Queen. I'd like to do the collection of those, but most likely it's going to be another From the Stacks collection. There are so many books. Then I have philatelic literature because I'm a stamp collector, but I think that may bore most people, except the stamp collectors may really like it. So I may do that as well. I have a lot of gardening books. I have to do those. Not have to, but I mean, there's so many of them, and I can probably speak a little bit more on those as far as which ones are good, which ones are bad, which has the better pictures. And of course, I have collected not only kind of contemporary books to when I was working, but I've also gone through and gotten a lot of older vintage books, and I'm really excited to show you those. And I'll look forward to seeing you on the next video.